Giving all glory and honor and praise to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakadash. Double honor to the elders, apostles of Great Millstone who rule well, teaching us the 100% truth. Shalom and salutations to the hopeful elect, beginning with the 144,000 and the rest of the men, women, and children. I'm your brother Magun Shalamar. The title of this video is Trump's new plan for farm workers. Nero has changed the law regarding the immigrants of the northern tribe working on these farms. This lady here, she's going to go into details of what's actually going on behind the scenes. A lot of us don't know that it's actually hardcore slavery for the northern tribe. And Trump has changed the law that helps the farmers, the owners of the farms, to get away with this new age slavery. So we're going to get right into this video. This is fair use, fair use. This is not for monetary gain, but for education purposes only. Fair use.
As an employer, I don't want to be competing with slavery. I don't want that, I don't find that moral or financial calculation actually that difficult to do. What everybody's talking about with farm labor is the ICE raids, because they are out in the streets, in public, in a city where there's a lot of other people to see it. So the ICE raids are getting all the attention. But you need to know that the ICE raids are only half the story. And today we're going to talk about the other half of what's going on with farm labor. What happens when all the undocumented workers are locked up or expelled from the country? Then what? And that's the question everybody's been asking, right? What were farmers thinking when they voted for this? When they voted for a guy who promised to expel all their workers from the country? I'm a small farmer, and I came up in farming as a farm worker. I'm an American, but I did those field jobs on farms that everybody thinks Americans won't do. And that's why I can tell you it is a lot more complicated than just Americans won't do that. So we're going to talk about some of the inside story about why U.S. farmers thought it was a good idea to expel their own workers from the country, what they thought was going to happen after that, and how it's a lot worse than you probably imagined. I think the main thing that folks need to understand about farm labor is farmers will get their workers no matter what. One way or the other, they'll get them. And so the question is not will farmers get their workers? The question is how will farmers get their workers? For the last couple decades or so, it's been a lot of undocumented labor. It's been a lot of undocumented people coming across the border on their own. As someone who has been a coworker with a lot of these folks, I like to call them freelance because it really drives home the fact that they're just gig workers. They can pick up and go to the next job whenever they want. A lot of farm employers, farmers, the people who hire farm workers, don't like that. They don't like the fact that there are all these workers that they depend on, but if the job's not good, if it's not paying enough, if they're not being treated well, they can just leave. And that's a problem for a lot of farm employers. Speaking as a small farmer, there's a lot of things that my fellow farmers don't like about undocumented workers, and it's not the fact that they're illegal, it's the fact that they can pick up and leave at any time. A lot of farm employers wind up resorting to threats, I'm going to call ICE on you, to basically get people to stay even when the job conditions are bad. And the big problem with that is it's a lot of work. Even though the workers are cheap, it's a bit of a management headache. And that's also a big part of why they don't like hiring US citizens either. And they'll give you this whole thing about how Americans don't want to do the hard work. I would point out that I live in Fayetteville, North Carolina, next to Fort Bragg, which is home to tens of thousands of people who volunteered to work hard outdoors, getting shot at, for not a whole lot of pay. So you cannot tell me that Americans don't want to work hard is the problem. There's more to it than that. The big thing about farm labor is it's a dead-end job. And I've done some videos on why and what we could do to change that. That's a whole nother thing besides what we're talking about today. The bottom line is, yeah, Americans are totally willing to work hard. The thing is, if the hard work that you have is a dead-end job, then the Americans who are willing to work hard will go do that hard work somewhere else, where that hard work is going to pay off. So it's not that Americans don't want to work hard, it's that we want there to be a point to working hard. So that's the issue here. There's a few other things too, but that's really the big one. So rather than deciding to build livelihoods that Americans want, the U.S. farm sector has decided we'll just hire immigrants instead. Now, when most people hear farm workers, they usually think undocumented. And that is true. Many of my coworkers are undocumented. However, there is an actual legal visa immigration program for farm workers. It's called H-2A. So that's what we're going to spend a lot of this video talking about. Farmers have gripes with the H-2A program because it's expensive. Workers have gripes with the H-2A program because slavery that happens under the table with that thing. So yeah, you can have a farm labor program that is so not functional that you have both overcharging and slavery. The H-2A system is proof that you really can't have it all.
Anyone who knows me knows I love Royal Kingdom, but not everyone knows why. Allow me.
So as you can see, that these farmers are actually engaged in coming up to ways to save money and to also have the northern tribe to stay on their plantations and work without having them the freedom to pick up and leave. Because even the northern tribe, man, they're gonna work, but if they feel as though that they're being mistreated, they just get up and roll and go to the next farmer who's gonna pay them more and have to deal with less of that that racist bias that comes their way from these Edomites. But she's going to get into something heavy in a second here about what's going on behind the scenes, what they're doing to their wives, to the northern tribe wives, talking about the raping their children, raping their wives, even the men. This is not being heard or seen in the news. Let me grab a quick scripture. This is Psalms chapter 64 and verse 8. It says, "So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away." And that's what we're seeing in these last days of, beginning of Jacob's trouble, that Edomites are coming out and whistleblowing. And this lady here appears to be an Edomite. She could very well be an Israelite, but because she's definitely dropping a hammer on these Edomites farmers and on Nero himself of what's going on. So all this truth is coming out. So what we're gonna go to the
Anyone who knows
the
me
meat.
knows I love Royal Kingdom, but not everyone knows why.
Let's talk about what farmers don't like about the H-2A program. And I will say farmers don't like the H-2A program with a big ol' asterisk, because if you look at how many farmers are hiring H-2A workers, the number is going up very rapidly every single year. It's kind of funny to me.
So H2A is basically a temp agency. Everybody up north, we know about the temp jobs that used to be here before, the scandemic. Basically, you can go there and apply for jobs, sign up, and the temp agency will find you a job within a day, and you'll work at that job for how long the person who needs you keep you there. Or sometimes they may just hire you and take you away from the temp agency. But the temp agency basically is the in-between guy, you and the owner that needs help. So that's what H2A is doing. They're the ones who, when the undocumented comes to America, I did say undocumented, come to America, they go to a H2A and they will find them a job at these farmers, on these farms. And let's go to
the big one, already mentioned it, slavery. There have been multiple cases of people who were brought into this country legally on H-2A visas and then had their passports taken, so they couldn't leave. They couldn't leave the job. They couldn't leave the country. They were held prisoner, right? They were forced to work a lot more than they were supposed to, sometimes under the table for extra clients for people they were not supposed to be assigned to work for. The way the H-2A visa works is you have a visa to work for that employer. And so, often these folks are like, okay, you do the full day's work for that employer, and then we bring you over somewhere else and make you do some more work that you may or may not get paid for. People not getting enough food, people having to live in really filthy conditions with no running water, a lot of bugs. I don't know how you're supposed to pick crops and keep it clean if you can't do laundry and you can't wash your hands. Make that make sense. We have a lot of cases where people were not paid what they were supposed to be paid. That minimum wage was not filled. Sometimes what they were paid was very low. And sometimes people are threatened. You have to work harder or we will beat you. You have to work harder or we will sexually assault you on the job. Or sometimes it would just happen anyway. A real classic one they use, though, is you have to work harder or we will get your wife and family back home. This is a pretty common tactic that H-2A contractors use. Hey, I've got contacts back in Mexico. That's how, we got you funneled into working for this company. We know people back home who know your family. And if you don't work hard enough, if you don't work fast enough, if you try to tell the police, if you try to run away, we will murder your family back home. That is a not uncommon tactic that H-2A employers will use. And if you are being held captive, you can't leave. You are not getting paid much, if anything. You're being sexually assaulted at work, and you're having your family threatened if you try to say anything or leave. If that's not slavery, I don't know what is. And this is happening to people who come into this country legally, who go through the extra effort to make sure that they are documented, who go through the effort to do everything right. If you can do everything right and still have this happen to you, I gotta ask you, what is the point? Why should people follow the law when this is what following the law gets you? To its credit, the US did recognize that this was a problem and put in some big anti-slavery provisions into the H-2A program back in 2024. A big part of why that happened, largely in response to the biggest modern day slavery bust in recent US history. That was in 2021 in Georgia. And actually did some work around there at that time, and I can tell you it was an open secret. People knew it was happening. It still took a several-year investigation to take that ring down. I'm not clear on how many people they had wrapped up in that, but that slavery ring in southern Georgia had made $200 million. So slavery is a big business. There's a lot of money to be made in forcing other people to work for you and not giving them anything back. You know, just something to think about. Because there are a lot of hoops to jump through with hiring people through H-2A, you can't just go to Home Depot and pick people up. You have to actually do paperwork and stuff because there's official vetting. That's how it is. When a farm has to do that paperwork, it feels very stressful. It's a lot of work. And there's also the whole thing with where the workers need housing, transportation, food. That's a lot of extra work on top of what farms already do, like plant crops, harvest them. So a lot of farms are like, well, that's too much. I can't do that myself. What they will do is they will hire an H-2A labor contractor. So an H-2A labor contractor is just a temp agency for farms. Right? So a quirk of the H-2A system is it's not here's your ticket to enter the country and go find a job. It's more like a matchmaking service. So as a worker, you apply for an H-2A visa and a job, and also the employers apply to hire H-2A workers. So then the H-2A system is like a matchmaker matching people up. So when you have that H-2A visa, you can only work for that employer that you got matched to. So every farm might only need people for 2 to 6 weeks. So that's a lot of paperwork to do just to hire people for 2 to 6 weeks. So a cool trick that people figured out was, what if I just hire people through a temp agency and then they work for the temp agency? That's their employer. And then the temp agency can just rent them out to different farms when they need them. So that's how the H-2A system actually kind of works in practice. Most of them work for temp agencies instead of farms themselves. So that adds a lot of convenience for the farms. You know, they get to skip a lot of the paperwork and the providing the necessities of living for the employees. The downside is when a lot of the extreme abuse in the H-2A system, slavery, things like that, it's usually the labor contractors doing it. The other nice thing that farmers get from using temp agencies, in addition to convenience, there's also plausible deniability. As a farmer, you can hire H-2A workers through a labor contractor, and then if it turns out that labor contractor was doing a slavery, it's not your fault. Technically, if a labor contractor is doing crimes and slavery on your farm, you can be liable as the farmer, but that prosecution is rarely actually done. I do believe that is part of why farmers were so eager to vote for Trump, though, was because he promised them that he would not do that. He promised that if someone is doing slavery on your farm, you will not be prosecuted. That was part of the bargain. Part of the 2024 anti-slavery reforms was going to be more enforcement with farms. If you hire a labor contractor and they're doing a slavery on your farm, you could be liable for that. And that was really upsetting to a lot of folks in the farm sector because they said, well, how can I know? How could I possibly know? And my answer to that would be, well, if it's your property, who's in charge of what's happening there? If it's not you, who's in charge? My feeling is,
So, to the southern tribes, mainly talking about Judah here, don't realize or refuse to realize that the northern tribe, so-called Latinos and Native Americans, are also a part of the 12 tribes of Israel. They're the northern tribe. And these prophecies are flying off the roof because we're here being oppressed together in America. And it's ironic how, she's keep mentioning slavery because that's exactly what it is being here in America. We are still under slavery. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 33. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, the children of Israel, the northern tribe, and the children of Judah, the southern tribe, were oppressed together, and all that took them captivity and took them captives have held them fast. They refused to let them go. And that place is talking about in America. We are here together. Majority of the tribes are here in America together. The northern tribe and the southern tribe. You know, the Latino, so-called Latinos, and the so-called Negroes here in America. Southern tribe is talking about the Judah, so-called Negroes, Levites, so-called Haitians, and Benjamin, so-called West Indians. This makes up the Judah. And all that took them captives, held them fast. They refused to let them go. And who is that? Is here in America. America refused to let them go. We're still here in slavery. We're being oppressed. The northern tribe is being oppressed along with Judah. That door of coming in and just, where the streets are painted gold and the trees has leaves full of money. Them days is over with. You know, the devil is starting to show his hand, so-called white man, because he knows his time is short here on earth in this rulership. This is Psalms chapter 10. We'll start at verse 1. It reads a prayer for the overthrow of the wicked. Why standest thou far off, O Yahweh, B'Shem Yahweh Shai? Why hidest thou thyself in time of trouble? The wicked in his pride does persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined. Right, because they bringing hell on Jake, man. We catching hell down there, here in America. Especially the northern tribes. You know, they said that the documented comes in thinking they're going to get some a good work, get some minimum wage, which she showed the charts that minimum wage is like was $17 in the majority of the places, between $16 to $17 an hour that it was making. But Trump came in last year in 2024 and changed that law where he lowered the base pay. It says, for the wicked boasteth in his heart desire and blesseth the covetousness whom Yahweh abhorreth. Right, because that's all they do, man. They whatever they see, they gonna take. You know, they're not gonna consider your thoughts or your livelihood as being a top priority. If they need your work, you're supposed to pay that man, give him something to eat, give him what his day's pay. But they're not. They're raping their women. They're raping their children out there on the plantation fields, man. The wicked, through his pride of his countenance, will not seek after the Most High. The Most High is not in all his thoughts, right? Because Esau can't. Esau does not have the blessing. Esau, the Lord said he hateth Esau. He hates them, So they can't seek after the Lord. They can't seek his forgiveness. So they mad. They mad at Yahweh, and they're mad at Israel. Because we're the chosen people of the Most High. Verse 5 says, his ways are always grievous. The judgments are far above all his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffers at them. Right, because that's what he does. His grievance and his judgments for us is more than what he would put on himself. He wouldn't put his own people. When she say the Americans, she's talking about the so-called white man. You won't see them out there hustling in that damn heat, picking onions, picking whatever. You won't see them out there doing that type of slave work for the type of pennies that they're paying those immigrants, man. The northern tribe. He hath said in his heart, I shall not be moved, for I shall never be in adversity. His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. And that's what it does. That's what Donald Trump does. Donald Trump, like the lady said, he came in saying that he was going to make a deal that's going to be more favorable to the farmers. That's why they voted for Trump. They voted for him knowing that he was going to come in and change that slavery law where they don't have to pay as much to the northern tribe when they come in and work them fields in the hot sun. Can you imagine being down in Georgia, being down south, man, in that hot ass sun? You know what I mean? Jake, shit, Judah, we ain't trying to hear that shit. Who getting on the first bus to go down there in them damn hot ass sun working for Esau? Nobody. And damn well the so-called white man, he himself ain't gonna get out there in them damn fields, man. But yet you got the northern tribe will come here and legally and get documented just to go and work for these H2 companies and be mistreated like the way they are, man. This modern day slavery. It says his mouth is full of cursing and deceit, and the fraud under his tongue is mischief and vanity. He sitteth in lurking places of the villages, and in secret places doth he murder the innocent. His eyes are privily set against the poor. And that's what this damn devil does, man. He does this to the innocent and to the poor. And who are the innocent and the poor? Judah. Who's the innocent and poor? Ephraim. You know, the southern tribe and the northern tribe, man. We're the ones that's being, mistreated in America. That's why this place has to burn, man. That's why America has to be totally destroyed, utterly destroyed with fire when Yahweh Shah HaMashiach returns. Let me get another quick scripture. This is Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 7. It says, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time for Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. And this is the times we're in right now, man. This is Jacob's trouble for all of Jake. So-called Negroes, the so-called Latinos, and the so-called North American Indians. All of us. This is Jacob's trouble, man. This shit right here, what's happening now is just going to turn up until they come out with that New World Order. And we know what the New World Order is. It's the MOTB, which is the micro C-hip. They turning this place up, man. They turning it upside down where that the dollar system is just going to not mean shit. And they're going to input the micro C-hip. And when they do that, we know Yahweh, they're going to go in World War III, and Yahweh Shah is going to meet them in the middle of that battle. And he's going to bring nothing but fire and destruction to America. And this place is going to become that lake of fire and going to be burning for a long period of time. So with that, I hope you're edified. Call halal Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shah by Hashem, Call Hagadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Shalom to the hopeful elect. Hope you're edified. Shalom.